He's an enduring icon on the big screen. The name Sylvester Stallone is forever linked to the image of men who refuse to fall Rocky. Rambo characters who never surrendered to fate. Today, thanks to the success of his career, Stallone holds a net worth of $400 million and resides in a $58 million mansion in Palm Beach, where he collects luxury cars like Bentleys and Ferraris. But don't admire the wealth alone, admire what he had to overcome to earn it. As a child, he was bullied and locked in dark rooms because of a birth defect. Later in life, he faced public scrutiny over failed marriages, endured the emotional weight of aging, and watched his career slow down. From a rundown rented room to a multi-million-dollar estate in Palm Beach, Stallone's journey isn't just a movie script. It's a real-life story of a man who rewrote his own destiny with his own two hands. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, please remember to click the like button. It really helps us out, and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. He's the symbol of toughness, Rocky Balboa. The fighter who never backed down, Rambo. The lone warrior who refused to surrender. But few people know, Sylvester Stallone was once a boy with a speech impediment, partially paralyzed on one side of his face, mocked and locked in dark rooms as a joke, growing up in a world where no one believed he would ever make it. When the world looked down on him, Stallone clung to one thing, the belief that one day, that very name would make all of America stop and listen. Born in 1946 in Hell's Kitchen, New York, a rough neighborhood of gray brick walls, squeaky pushcarts, and the smell of engine oil in the air, Stallone grew up surrounded by family violence, poverty, and isolation. A birth complication left one side of his face partially paralyzed. His lip drooped. His speech came out slurred. In school, he became an easy target. Once, a group of classmates locked him inside the gym, turned off the lights, and shut the door. He stood there, frozen, as laughter echoed from the other side. His heart cracked in silence. After his parents separated, Stallone was placed in a foster home. A narrow room with a creaky iron bed and dinners made of dry bread and watered-down milk. But for him, that place planted something deeper than survival, a dream. One night, he overheard another kid whispering about wanting to be a pilot under the dim hallway lights. Stallone looked up at the ceiling and thought, if he dares to dream, then I must, too. He began practicing speech in front of the mirror, mimicking radio voices, recording his own voice over and over despite everyone around him believing that voice would never lead anywhere. At 15, after being shoved to the ground in the schoolyard, he didn't cry anymore. He stood up, blood forming at the corner of his mouth, and whispered to himself, one day, they'll remember me. No one could have imagined that the boy once locked in the dark would one day live in a multi-million-dollar mansion in Beverly Hills, own a fleet of vintage supercars, and lead one of the most iconic action franchises in film history, becoming a living symbol of American grit. Could a man who once had to sell his beloved dog just to survive really write a script in 3 days and change the world? From the shadowy alleys of Hell's Kitchen, Stallone would rise to the silver screen where the voice once mocked in silence would become the voice of millions. Only $106 left in his wallet, a pregnant wife, no money for rent, and forced to sell his beloved dog just to buy food. Who could have guessed Sylvester Stallone was marching straight toward legend? In the mid-70s, Stallone was still an unknown actor in New York, scraping by on bit parts, stunt work, anything to survive. Casting directors dismissed his slurred voice and too rough looks, passing him over for roles with any depth. In a damp, peeling rental apartment, he and his wife, Sasha Chak, lived on instant noodles and hope. Rock bottom came when he sold his dog, Butkus, for $40 at a corner store because he couldn't afford kibble. That dog hadn't been just a pet, he'd been Stallone's only companion back when the actor was homeless. A few weeks later, Stallone watched Muhammad Ali battle Chuck Wepner. The fury of those punches and Wepner's refusal to quit kept him awake for 3 straight days. In that shabby room, he hammered out the screenplay for Rocky in just 72 hours, telling the tale of an unknown fighter given one shot at the champ. Rocky's story was Stallone's own. Studios read the script and offered $300,000 on one condition: Stallone couldn't play Rocky. They wanted a bigger box office name. He turned them down without blinking. "If I surrender myself in that story," he said, There's nothing left to hold on to. At last, a small studio agreed to cast him, but only if he slashed the budget. He took a fraction of the pay and seized the dream. Rocky opened in 1976. A low-budget film with no stars became a cultural phenomenon, earning 10 Oscar nominations and winning Best Picture. The man who once couldn't buy dinner now strode down the red carpet. He bought Butkus back for a price many times higher, then put him in the movie. The scene where Rocky hugs his dog is Stallone reuniting with an old friend who never abandoned him in darker days. From a leaking apartment to Oscar spotlights, Stallone didn't just rewrite fate, he lived every line of it. Yet the red carpet was only the beginning. Behind the glare lay a life few imagined he would ever know: multi-million-dollar estates, supercars, fine oil paintings, and the quiet calm he'd dreamed about since those nights in a children's home. From a script scribbled on scrap paper in a leaking apartment, Sylvester Stallone built a $100 million film empire, one word, one punch at a time. Rocky wasn't just a movie, it was the beginning of an entirely new life. For over 4 decades, Stallone has continually reinvented himself through some of pop culture's most iconic characters, from Rocky Balboa, the man who refused to fall, to John Rambo, the survivor driven by instinct, and later, The Expendables, where he wasn't just the lead actor but also the producer and creative force behind the franchise. Worldwide box office earnings from films he's written, starred in, or produced have surpassed $4 billion, an unimaginable figure for someone once rejected for his voice and face. His salary for each Expendables installment was estimated at $15 to $20 million, not including back-end profits, royalties, and endorsements. Beyond acting, he's invested in high-end real estate, curated an art collection, and runs Balboa Productions, his own company dedicated to lifting up new talent entering the industry. Despite having a net worth of over $400 million, Stallone still finds solace in painting, just as he once found comfort in comic books as a boy. Success didn't make him forget who he was. If anything, it made him lean deeper into the values that once helped him survive. Can a multi-million-dollar mansion still hold the quiet dreams of a boy from Hell's Kitchen? Behind all the wealth, what kind of life does Stallone lead? Let's step inside the luxury and the deeply personal corners of a legend. In the secluded enclave of Beverly Park, where hedges are trimmed like sculpture and gates stand taller than most men, Stallone once owned a 20,000 square foot estate. It included a round swimming pool, a private theater, a boxing gym, and an art gallery all his own. But for him, the house wasn't just a symbol of wealth, it was a quiet kind of proof that the boy who once couldn't speak clearly had reached the peak of his dream. He once shared that he painted a large canvas and hung it in the living room. It showed a lone man in a hat sitting on stone steps. No face, no name, just a feeling of solitude. "That's me," he said, "but no one recognizes it because this time I'm sitting in my own home." Each morning, he'd walk out onto the west-facing balcony, a small espresso in hand, listening to the wind move through the trees. "Here," he said, "I can actually hear myself breathe," something he never experienced growing up in foster homes and cramped apartments. Then, in 2021, he sold that home for nearly $58 million. But for Stallone, the move wasn't giving up, it was letting go. After a lifetime spent proving himself, he wanted to live lighter and closer to what truly mattered. He relocated to Palm Beach, Florida, where the ocean replaced city traffic, and mornings arrived without paparazzi. His new home spans 13,000 square feet, but there's no gallery, just walls adorned with his own paintings, family photographs, and a quiet corner where he now raises turtles. There, his days begin at 5 a.m., painting while the sun is still low, then walking his dog around the garden. One morning, he ran into a young paper boy who didn't recognize him. Stallone smiled and bought a paper every day that week, saying nothing. "There's a kind of peace," he said, "in just being an ordinary man." These homes weren't just places to live. Each one marked a chapter written not in dollars, but in punches, in comebacks, in people he never let go of. To Stallone, cars are more than machines, they're rolling chapters of his life, extensions of the roles he's played and reminders of the man he used to be. In his garage, The centerpiece is a customized black Ford Mustang GT, its engine tuned to deliver a deep, growling tone. Worth over $150,000, it was his go-to car during the filming of The Expendables. Every time he turned the key, the roar reminded him, "I'm still in the fight." Next to it sits a Bentley Continental GTC Speed valued over $250,000 with amber leather interiors, hand-stitched seats, and a premium Naim audio system. This is his pick for movie premieres, not to show off, but for its quiet strength. "This Bentley," he once said, "feels like Rocky after Part 3 doesn't need to shout, just walks in and everyone knows who he is." Tucked inside is an armored Cadillac Escalade ESV, priced above $500,000, outfitted like a rolling lounge. It includes folding work tables, handcrafted leather chairs, and complete soundproofing. This is where he reads scripts, rewrites lines, or simply sits in silence. It's the only place where I can actually hear myself think even while moving. There's also the rare Mercedes-Benz SL65 AMG Black Series worth over $300,000. He doesn't drive it often. He keeps it as a gift to himself, a reminder that there's still fire in his veins. On quiet afternoons, he drives alone along Florida's coastal roads. No driver, no entourage, just Stallone, the engine, and the sound of the sea breeze in the hush of the cabin. He doesn't play music. He lets the wind and engine bring back memories of a man who once couldn't afford a cab. Now, behind the wheel of cars he used to tape to his bedroom wall, Stallone doesn't collect cars for status. He keeps them the way we keep old photos for the versions of ourselves we can't bear to leave behind. The hungry young fighter, the quiet father with a brush in hand, the tough producer still chasing new stories, and the man who's never stopped moving forward. Spotlights can blind, but for Stallone, they only cast a stronger glow on what he values most: silence. In a world that shares everything, he keeps his most meaningful moments to himself. Mornings in Palm Beach begin at 5 a.m., a cup of espresso, a window seat, and a canvas. He's painted over 300 oil works by hand, not to exhibit, not to sell, just to exist. I started painting in foster care. When no one's listening, color will. He especially enjoys painting blurred faces, as if to let the viewer finish the story. One painting hangs in his private room, an old man walking away, his back turned, heading toward the door. When asked who it was, Stallone simply smiled. Maybe it's Rocky, maybe it's me. Beyond painting, he keeps dogs, turtles, and often says they bring him peace. The same turtles Cuff and Link that appeared in Rocky. They're still alive, nearly 50 years old. He cares for them not for show, but because of a promise he made to himself: if anything from the old days stays with me, I'll keep it to the end. In his free time, he enjoys a good cigar, not for trend, but for stillness. An Opus X, soft jazz in the studio, and the breeze through the back garden that, to him, is real luxury. No spotlight, no cameras, no one performing. It's not uncommon to spot Stallone in an old bookstore or a quiet seaside cafe. No security, no nameplate, just a man in a wide-brimmed hat, reading a worn-out paperback in peace. Amid Hollywood's bright lights, Stallone chose to walk in the shadows, and the more successful he became, the more slowly he walked to make sure he didn't leave his truest self behind. For a man who climbed out of hardship, Stallone knows that fame alone can't warm a home without real love. He married Jennifer Flavin, a former model. 22 years his junior in 1997, over 2 decades together. They've raised 3 daughters, Sophia, Sistine, and Scarlett. Stallone has said, "I grew up hearing shouting. My daughters will grow up hearing someone listen." He admits he failed in past relationships, but those failures drove him to change. Despite long filming schedules, he never misses the chance to call home at night, not to check in, but just to say, "Dad's still here." His daughters, raised in the spotlight but never consumed by it, have said the same thing. Their father is quiet, but unshakably strong. When Sophia faced a health scare, Stallone canceled an entire shoot to stay by her hospital bed. No headlines, no statements, just a father doing what he once wished his own had done for him. Though he's lived in luxury, he's never let his children believe success comes easy. He's taken them to visit his old foster home in New York, standing before the rusted gate and saying, "This is where I learned I was never going back." To Stallone, Family isn't the reward of success. It's the reason he tries to live with kindness when all the stage lights go dark. From a man once mocked for not being able to say a full sentence, Stallone is now the one his daughter calls the strongest man I know, not for his muscles, but his heart. And yet, even surrounded by family, the ocean, and his paintings, some wounds never fully heal. The quiet losses, the unseen scars, they stay with him, and they're what taught him, once again, how to stand back up. Stallone once wrote, "Rocky is me, not when he wins but when he falls," and perhaps in real life, he's taken harder hits than any he ever faced on screen, the kind no one applauds for, no director calls cut. In 2012, he faced the greatest pain of his life. His eldest son, Sage Stallone, passed away at the age of 36 due to a congenital heart condition. To the world, it was a tragedy. But to Stallone, it was the moment when all success lost its meaning. Sage had appeared alongside him in Rocky V, and although they'd been distant at times, the bond had never disappeared. After the funeral, Stallone vanished from the public eye. No statements, no interviews, just one photo. Taken from afar, Stallone sitting alone in a car, staring out at the ocean. His eyes didn't look sad. They looked hollow, as if part of him had left with his son. Years earlier, at the height of his career, he nearly lost his life filming Rocky IV, wanting the fight to look more realistic. He told co-star Dolph Lundgren to throw a real punch. Hours later, Stallone was rushed to the ICU with a dangerously swollen heart. Doctors said if he'd arrived any later, he might not have survived. But he didn't back down. After leaving the hospital, he returned to the set and finished the scene. No rewrites, no shortcuts. For Stallone, enduring pain was part of the story. In 2022, his 25-year marriage to Jennifer Flavin appeared to be ending when she filed for divorce. Quietly, headlines called it the final chapter of an icon, but just weeks later, the two reconciled. No press conference, no official statement, just a single photo posted by Stallone, the couple holding hands, walking together under a Florida sunset, with a caption that simply read, "Family is the one fight I'll never walk away from." He's also known loss in friendship. Actor Joe Spinell, a close friend and collaborator, drifted apart from Stallone after tensions during the filming of Nighthawks in 1981. The two never spoke again. When Spinell died in 1989, Stallone remained silent, never mentioning his name publicly. It wasn't until years later that he offered a quiet reflection. Some people only walk with us for a while, and we have to learn to value the stretch they shared. It wasn't the triumphs or the roles that shaped him most, it was life's real punches, the ones that didn't come with scripts or spotlights. He never let pain destroy him, but he never pretended it didn't exist. Stallone carried it with him like a part of his body, part of his story. And somehow, it's that very pain that helped him stand taller on his own 2 feet. Some people leave behind a film, others leave behind a character, but Sylvester Stallone left behind a living symbol, something deeply woven into the cultural memory of America. From Rocky to Rambo, from the Expendables to the lesser-known roles in his later years, Stallone has never been just an actor. He became the voice of those who were overlooked, the symbol for anyone who's ever been rejected, hurt, or told they weren't enough, and still chose to get up, to keep fighting, not to defeat others but to avoid being defeated by themselves. The films he's starred in have earned over $4 billion worldwide, but the real value isn't in the number, it's in how he made millions of people believe that anyone can start over, no matter how poor, how ridiculed, or how forgotten they feel. Now, approaching 80, he still paints, still writes scripts, still produces films, and in every project, he infuses a part of the man once deemed not good enough to be a leading man. That relentless persistence, that refusal to quit, may just be his greatest legacy. Through his company, Balboa Productions, he quietly supports emerging talent, especially those who didn't have an easy start. He doesn't give motivational speeches, but the way he lives quietly, steadily, always pushing himself, has become a source of inspiration for an entire generation. His name is on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's won a Golden Globe, received multiple Oscar nominations. and is one of only 2 actors in history to have a #1 box office hit in 6 straight decades. But more than any award, he's achieved something few in the entertainment world